yeah, Thirsty Thursday. Don't mind if we do, and allow us to quench said thirst. She's Jessie. I'm Emerson. You are watching The Sweat, which today is jam-packed with ALDS goodness because the wild card games are now behind us and some best bets ahead of Week 6 around college football. Going to talk some Heisman Trophy odds as well.
Yeah, Week 5 in the NFL kicks off tonight, and we've got tons of Thursday Night Football love coming up, including another chance for you to become a millionaire. The Week 5 Millie Maker is live right now in the DraftKings lobby. Draft your lineup and take a shot at the $4 million prize pool and the $1 million top prize. And just like every other week, the winner will secure their entry into the DraftKings Tournament of Champions live final in January for another shot at $1 million top prize. So go check out this contest in the DK lobby right now.
Do not forget there is a Millie Maker for tonight's Thursday night throwdown between the Rams and Seahawks as well. That's just $15 to enter. We'll get to some DFS picks for that one coming up. Let's talk about some of the best bets for this game right now. Good morning to our panel consisting of DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich, Reed T. Fowler, Jeff Ulrich. LA favored on the road, 2.5 points right now. Who covers, Jeff?
Yeah, I will fade the public here. It does look like the Rams are getting a lot of bets, a lot of heat, so to speak. People expecting a quick bounce back. I'm just going to side with the best player in this game. That's going to be Russell Wilson. You know, there's certain things you don't do in life. Eat yellow snow. Don't bet against good quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. It's a rule to live by. Russ played a lot better last game. The Seahawks getting a little bit healthier. They're going to have Gerald Everett coming in. And you look at the Rams, they're a little bit banged up at running back. This is a team who has been had a little bit in the passing game, a little bit more than usual. It's tough to bounce back after getting your lunch handed to you, and that's what the Rams did, especially got peaked by the Cardinals. Now it's a short week coming into Seattle. Little shocked to see the Seahawks as underdogs at home here. I'm going to side with Seattle.
Hey, Reed, you think the Rams go in there, win by at least a field goal?
I do. And this is why Jeff is great for these types of shows, because he's just going to go contrarian unless it's over-unders, and all he's going to take are overs. But I'm going with the Rams. This is a confluence of events, guys, that happened both for the Seahawks and against the Rams last week, right? The Rams got absolutely obliterated by the Arizona Cardinals, exploiting their defense, and Kyler Murray showing why he's a front runner of the MVP race. And Seattle beat a divisional foe without their starting quarterback. And everyone in San Francisco's camp said, we were not expecting Trey Lance to come in this early. Now, that's on San Francisco for not preparing this guy in case a scenario like this happens. But if you look at the matchup, the key matchup, which we'll get to in a little bit, Seattle is just going to be outmatched by the Rams. They're getting some respect and some love being at home and winning last week. But I think this goes to the Rams easily.
Pierce, Rams 4-1 ATS in the last 5 meetings with Seattle, but they've got Matt Stafford now.
Yeah, maybe he's better than Russell Wilson. Jeff seems to think Russ is the best. I'm going to go with the Rams, but I'm not nearly as comfortable as Reed with this pick because I do side with Jeff in that I hate betting against Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, especially at home. But the Rams are clearly the better team, and maybe this is a bit of an overreaction to their loss last week, but they possibly lost to the best team in football, which might make them the second best team in football. And the second best team in football should cover the spread against a Seattle team that has plenty of weaknesses.
All right, a big total for this one, guys, 54 points. Are we going to get a shootout, Reed?
I mean, we could, but I'm going to go under. I think that a lot of hype has come, especially with what the Rams have done, and rightfully so. But like preseason, guys, this number was at 48. And now it's gone up 6.5 points. And I know Jeff is smiling because he's going to take the over here. So I'm appreciating that. But look, the Rams are still like the number 1 or 2 ranked defense, right? You have Aaron Donald. To talk about taking someone's lunch, Jeff. Aaron Donald has been taking Russell Wilson's lunch as long as Russell Wilson has been in the NFL and Aaron Donald has been in the NFL. That's just it. And Seattle's 1-3 on the over, and they run an offense that caters towards in under. Like Chris Carson may be out, so maybe they pass it more, but you have a secondary, especially with Jalen Ramsey probably going up against DK Metcalf, that can shut down this passing offense. And we know the time of possession for these guys for Seattle is a lot lower than we'd like it to be for these offenses to both shoot out. So I'm going to say under.
All right, Pierce, are you going to take the under?
Obviously, Reed doesn't know it's Thirsty Thursday. He wants a boring Thursday night. Like, I'm not an overs guy like Jeff or an unders troll like Julian, but I would love to see Russell Westbrook and his dynamic receivers hitting some big plays, or Matthew Stafford surgically picking apart the Seattle defense, which really isn't hard to do. Carson Wentz went for 250 yards against his team without a preseason snap, and last time I checked, he's held together by Bondo. Now, to Reed's point, there is a strong trend for the unders. Seattle, in their last 16 games, 13-3 unders. When the Rams are favorites, the under is 20-7. But I'm going to root for the narrative. Let's get an over here.
Okay, Jeff, we rolling with the overs club?
I love that I'm just living rent-free in Reed's head right now. Just forcing him to take under so he doesn't have to agree with me on every segment. Yes, we're going over here. Of course we are. All those stats Pierce just threw out. You can throw them in the garbage can. It's Matthew Stafford time. The Rams are the fourth fastest team in terms of pace of play in 2021. It's a new day, new dawn, whatever you want to call it. Teams are passing over 40 times per game against the Rams because they're playing faster. The Rams are moving the ball quicker. Guess what? Teams throw against Seattle too, 39 times per game. They're top 10 in that stat again too. You're going to see a lot of pass attempts. And guess what? Russell Wilson, 9-1 on Thursday Night Football. Yeah, he comes to play Thursday. Everything's going to happen here. We got big play wide receivers. Give me the points. I don't get it up to 57. Let's still take. I'm just kidding. But at 54, yeah, we're going to go over for sure.
Alrighty, here we go. Favorite player prop. Pierce. Need it.
Darrell Henderson Jr. under 64.5. If we're going to push in all of our chips on this 55 over fast-paced passing game, then they're going to pass. And as Jeff just mentioned, Seattle has been worse against the pass than the rush. They've given up a lot of points to running backs, but it's been receiving running backs. They've allowed 31 receptions, 289 yards, the most fantasy points to receiving running backs without giving up a touchdown. That's remarkable. There's going to be a lot of passing in this game. Darrell Henderson Jr. ran 27 routes last week. This number probably looks pretty low to some people based on his game log, but that's the hint. That's the clue. We're going to see a lot of passing. Stafford's passing total is through the roof. It's going through the air. Henderson is not going to do much on the ground in this game.
Jeff.
Love it. Love that Pierce is. I've finally talked somebody into coming over to my craziness. But let's stick with that theme. Let's target these passing props. Matthew Stafford's is pretty big. I would go over on him, but I'm going to take the over on Russell Wilson at 271.5 because that one is too low. And you can even go over on Russell Wilson's pass attempts, over 35.5. Everyone's going to look, oh, the Seahawks didn't pass much last week. They didn't pass. They barely passed over 30 times per game. They're playing the Rams. The Rams are playing at an insanely fast pace. Like I said, teams are averaging over 40 pass attempts against them. Russell Wilson comes to play Thursday night. Take the overs on the Wilson passing props.
All right, Mr. Fowler.
Yeah, Jeff mentioned rent-free, so I guess that's Brooksy for him and Bryson for me because no one likes Brooks Koepka. And that's why Jeff is living in my head rent-free, absolutely. But look, we haven't talked about Cooper Kupp. He's the most expensive guy on the showdown right now. And this guy, talk about rent-free, he's living rent-free in secondaries' minds and defensive coordinators' minds because he's been amazing. And this number is probably depressed from last week's dud that Cooper Kupp put up, but over 6.5 receptions, you got to lay a ton of juice at minus 145. But to these guys' points, if this is going to be a shootout and we have to get Cooper Kupp back on the hashtag breakfast narrative that he has with Stafford, I'm definitely going Cooper Kupp over 6.5. Hugo Amadi is not the cornerback to be guarding a guy like Cooper Kupp. And PFF grade, he ranks pretty low. So give me Cooper Kupp over 6.5 receptions.
All right, Slate Approved Pick Time. Give us your favorite bet of the night, Jeff.
Yeah, it's going to be Russell Wilson over 271.5 passing yards. Again, we've gone over it all much, but of all the bets we talked about, that's my favorite.
All right, Reed, where are you going?
Rams 2.5. I liked it better at 1 earlier in the week, but at the same time, they're better across the board. I mentioned it at the top. Defensive line, the Rams are one of the best against one of the, not worst, but a struggling offensive line. And look at these receivers against these DBs. Chris mentioned it. I think there's mismatches in these key areas. Give me Rams minus 2.5.
Pierce.
Let's go back to Darrell Henderson Jr. Over 2.5 receptions. This is way too low. Seattle's defense struggles against receiving running backs. Henderson 27 routes last week. Just look at Stafford's passing total, 300 yards. Some of that's going to go through the air to Darrell Henderson Jr. Lock this one up.
Reed Jeff Pierce, enjoy your Thursday, gentlemen. We got a fresh new NFL panel that'll be sharing some showdown picks with us coming up. But right now, also ALDS Talk Baseball. It's coming up right after this break, which is right after Nick Eatman from DallasCowboys.com shares with us his thoughts on how the boys look through 4 weeks.
I had referred to Trayvon Diggs as Stephon Diggs' brother, and you said, listen, he keeps this up. We're going to have to call Steph Trayvon's brother. Well, I'll tell you what, he's going all Don Bishop on everybody. He's got 5 picks already, 2 more this past weekend. So beyond just downright thievery on a weekly basis, what are you seeing from him?
Well, he's becoming a star. That's what he's becoming, a superstar right in front of our eyes, and that's an awesome thing to have and to see. And he's such a great kid, and he plays. I call him a kid. I don't know if you watched Hard Knocks. He's got a 4-year-old son who basically dominated the hearts of Hard Knocks viewers because he's so cute. And but he just. Trayvon's having a good time out there, but he's a student of the game. He really is. Like, you can watch these interceptions. He does a great job of keeping his eyes on the quarterback. He's got great command of the coverage ability. That interception he had into the first one, he was basically playing safety. He's just, for being a second-year guy, they threw him into the fire last year. They said, hey, we'll put you in the deep end. You got to go swim. And now he's Michael Phelps.
Thinking back to your expectations coming into this season, and now obviously where we're at with the team at 3-1, are you more impressed by the offense or the defense?
I got asked that question today, and it was a tough answer. I'm more impressed with the defense because of our expectations. We thought the offense would be really good, and they have been. The defense, we didn't know, and I think the defense has been pretty good. I mean, I think the offense helps them, but the fact that they're getting turnovers on their own and making plays and getting the ball out and getting sacks and not only doing that, but doing it with some key players out. I mean, going into the season, DeMarcus Lawrence was considered the best defensive player. I'm not sure he is right now, but he makes $21 million a year. He's supposed to be like one of the top defensive players, and he is. And he's a good run stopper, good pass rusher off the edge, and so he's been out. And they've had Keanu O'Neal out. They've had Neville Gallimore out. They've had their second-round pick, Kelvin Joseph out. So they got some guys that are still going to come back that should help this defense. So saying all that, I think the defense has been very impressive.
Nick, I know we're only a quarter of the way into this season. Obviously, things have gone well so far. But, going back to when we started doing these interviews, even in the offseason, I was saying to you, I think the Cowboys are going to win this division. Certainly you were in line with that. But now at 3-1, with the only team in front of them in the standings, the Cardinals, the only unbeaten team in the NFL at this point at 4-0, I think we need to maybe reset overall expectations. I mean, where does Dallas fit in the scope of not just the division, but the overall NFC?
It is early. It's early, but that's why we do things like this. I think that for now, I don't think their goal changes. I mean, and then their goal's not going to change. You're going to go try to win the NFC East, and you haven't beaten, one of those top teams. You got to. Washington's probably going to give them the most problems, and you got to go win that game because that's a game that'll change the standings quickly if you don't win it. So I think for now it's still the NFC East until they have a game lead on Washington, and if they lose the next time they play. Now they don't play Washington, I don't think, until December. They play twice in December, so it's going to be a little bit a while to figure that out. But I think until you start seeing some clear separation within any division is when the goals change. I think right now you got to win, get a home game, and then see what happens in the playoffs. But we're a little bit too early to think that they need to be thinking in like bye week and all that stuff. Like, nah, let's hold off for a second.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Sweat. We're ready to break down tonight's AL divisional games with our MLB panel. DraftKings contributors Steve Buchanan, Gary Thorne, and Nick Fryer.
All right, fellas, let's get your favorite DFS plays and best bets for the White Sox-Astros game. We've got then on the later half, the Rays hosting the Red Sox. So starting with your favorite DFS pitcher, hit me with it, Steven.
I hate that this is my favorite, but I feel like this one might be kind of a sneaky one, even on a 2-game slate. But I really like using Eduardo Rodriguez tonight going against the Tampa Bay Rays. You look at his overall numbers against Tampa, they're not good. But what is I really kind of honed in on were his starts against Tampa at Tampa. 12 innings pitched, 3 earned runs allowed, 11 hits, and 13 strikeouts. Does have a 10.3 K9 against this team overall on the year. That's the span of 21 innings pitched. So when you look at the options on this slate, he's the last guy you're probably going to be looking at. But I think with this start being in Tampa, because he was a lot better on the road than he was at home this season, I think that's the guy to go for tonight.
All right, Gare Bear, how about you, dude?
Yeah, this is a weird slate considering it's 2 game ones of the 4 best teams in the American League. The pitching options are kind of underwhelming. But I think Lance Lynn is being a little disrespected here, just being the 3rd highest priced pitcher on this slate. I think there's pretty good reason to think Lance Lynn should be the most expensive pitcher on this slate, considering what he's done for the entirety of 2021. This is someone who leads all pitchers or American League pitchers with 150 innings thrown and expected ERA down at 2.59. I know he's struggled in his past 5 starts. He's got an ERA over 5 within that span of time, but within that same span, his expected FIP is 3.19. His strikeout rate is hovering around 29%. I just think Lance Lynn provides the best combination of ceiling and floor on this particular slate because, again, you've got Eduardo Rodriguez who's been up and down all season long. I do like him a little bit, but, the floor is not too high. And then when you look at someone like Shane McClanahan, probably going to throw like 4.5, 5 innings tonight. So I just think Lynn probably provides the most floor, which is what I'm looking to invest in.
All right, Nick, you're up, dude. Favorite DFS pitcher?
Yeah, I think with a smaller slate, this is a weird array that we're getting right now. I can't believe McClanahan was below Lynn on this. Like Gary said, I could have seen Lynn being the top dog in this one, but I'm actually going to go with the top dog tonight, who's only $500 DK more than Lance Lynn and Lance McCullers. I just like him better against the White Sox tonight because he's done well against the White Sox this season in both of his starts. He's dominated them. And you look at what Lynn did against the Astros earlier in the year, too. That was one of the good teams that he got racked by this year. And that's the thing I've noticed with Lance Lynn and looking at his game logs, too. He's had quite a few games where he struggled against good lineups. And the Astros, of course, are great lineup, righties versus righties or lefties. They've been pretty identical to the White Sox since the All-Star break, but the Astros have statistical advantages in each category when you're looking at WOBA, ISO, and even more so in OPS2 against right-handed pitching. So I'm going to go with Lance McCullers tonight.
All right, Gary, and your favorite DFS hitter?
I'm going to go with Wander Franco, $4,500. Shortstop is stacked tonight. It's the only position you can probably say that about. But Franco is one of the big reasons that the Rays have basically turned their season around against left-handed pitching. He's been phenomenal as a right-handed batter since getting the call-up from AAA. He's hitting .357 with a .602 slugging percentage. He has a 181 WRC plus against left-handed pitching in 2021. And as Steve mentioned, Eduardo Rodriguez, his biggest strength is his ability to strike out batters. And the Rays do strike out a lot against left-handed pitchers, but that is not on Franco. Just a 9% strikeout rate against left-handed pitching so far this season. We know Erod can be a little erratic. I just really like the top of this Tampa Bay order, and I think it all starts with Franco.
All right, Nick, favorite DFS hitter, who are you going with?
I think when you look at the outfield tonight, you can get some pretty good savings. And I know we're going to go over value plays, but this guy is almost in the value category. And I understand he had a slower September into October, but Yordan Alvarez at 4.3K versus Lance Lynn. I got to take that tonight. He's got an 850 OPS, 234 ISO, and a 359 WOBA versus right-handed pitching in the last month. So as much as his overall numbers were down, he was still hitting right-handed pitching fairly well. And I know he's only faced Lynn so much, but when he's seen him, he's done well enough where at least I know that he has a chance to hit his ceiling in this game. So I'm going with Yordan at 4.3K.
All right, Steve, favorite DFS hitter is who?
Yeah, Nick struggles to make good picks, so it's no doubt that he picked the same one that I did. Obviously, took a look at my notes before the show started. Yep. So I also went with Yordan Alvarez because, Gary was kind of singing the praises of Lance Lynn, and, that's fine. He was one of the, the big leading Cy Young candidates in the first half. The second half is kind of a different story. Lance Lynn became a lot more hittable than he was in the first half, threw 24 and a third innings, less in the second half than he did the first half, and matched his home run total with 9 allowed during that span. Left-handed bats accounted for 5 of those home runs.
Oh
So
my God,
I think
5 of the 9? 5 of the 9? Oh my God. Who hit the other 4?
righties.
Oh, jeez. That's crazy. That's a huge disparity. That's one more.
What's your problem?
It's a great stat, man. I just love it.
I'm scared.
I mean, he's not wrong.
I'm between a rock and a hard place right now because I agree with Steve's pick, but I never want to agree with Steve on anything. So,
You know, let's move on. Gary's in a bad mood. Let's hear his great value.
Oh, you're gonna call me out. I'm gonna call you out, buddy.
Ooh.
Hey, all I was saying was that he was more hittable in the second half. Is that a problem?
All I'm saying is 5 is more than 4. I understand, man.
Damn.
If I gotta really get down there for stats, I can do it too.
All right, well, Steve, let's see how he feels about your DFS value pick.
Yeah, I hope that I can appease my dad in this segment. I hope he likes this one. Yohan Moncada is only 3,500 tonight. That is criminally low for someone of his caliber. Coming into, Gary gave a head shake, so that's okay. Good,
Okay.
Glad. Thank you
You
very
must have
much.
read MLB targets, man. It's been on the DK playbook since last night.
oh, look who's really the one stealing picks out here. Look at that. Wow, unbelievable, Steve.
Nick, shut up.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Anyways, going back to Moncada, averaging 8.3 DraftKings fantasy points over his last 10 games coming into the playoffs. 2 home runs, 4 doubles, 8 runs scored in that span. And the thing I like about this the most is that he's likely going to be batting 6th in the order. So if people are stacking the White Sox against Lance McCullers, Moncada's probably going to be left off of that stack. So I really don't think, even with the price tag being as low as it is, that his ownership is going to be overly high either. And I think that's a mistake, because Garion said, and this was a good point that he made, that, shortstop is pretty stacked tonight. So I think Moncada at 3,500 is definitely one of the better value plays on this slate.
Okay, Gary, and so you obviously agree with that since he took that from your article?
Yeah, let's go with that. I would say my favorite value play on this slate, and there's really not a lot of opportunity to get guys priced below 3K into lineups because there's just not that many lineups today. So it's going to limit the amount of overall value plays. But Christian Arroyo's in kind of an interesting spot. He's $2,400. So if you really want to punt second base and spend up at other positions, it's not a bad avenue to take. Arroyo obviously only in the lineup because Jose Iglesias cannot be on the Red Sox playoff roster. However, he has been really good against left-handed pitchers in 2021. He's got a 357 batting average, or excuse me, a 329 batting average with a 137 WRC plus within that split. He's going to be hitting towards the bottom of the order, so he probably only gets 2 plate appearances against Shane McClanahan. But guess what? Probably everyone only gets 2 plate appearances against Shane McClanahan because that's how the Rays operate. So, again, I think if you're really looking to save, Arroyo could be a nice guy to just completely help you with some salary.
All right, Nick, where you at on this one?
I thought for sure Gary was going to bring up Michael Brantley because I know he had him in his targets, and I thought that was a great pick. I ended up landing on Nelson Cruz because he's at 3.9K going against Erod tonight, and I know Steve was citing some reasonable stats. I'm not going to go and be petty like him. He has some reasonable stats for Erod at Tropicana. But I think Nelson Cruz, anytime you see him this cheap against a lefty, you got to take a flyer on him. And he had, a 212 ISO against left-handed pitching last month. I understand that his numbers haven't been what you expect them to be against left-handed pitching since he joined Tampa, but there are signs of promise in this past month, and he's taken Erod deep a couple times too. So I'm going to go with him as my value play.
All right, hit me with your favorite bet, Steve.
Gonna do a little same game parlay. Those things are pretty spicy to get those same game parlays. So going with that Red Sox game, we're gonna get Eduardo Rodriguez at over 4 strikeouts and parlay that with the Red Sox run line at +1.5. Get that down to -110. The Red Sox hit on the run line overall on the season 52.1% of the time. The numbers get better here, so pay attention. 66.1% of the time when they were underdogs, a really nice 69% as road underdogs. Those just keep climbing. And that's exactly the position that they're in here tonight. -110, favorable number. We like it, no problem. That's my bet.
All right, Garion, where are you going?
You'll just never go broke betting on the Rays money line when the Rays are playing at home. They've won 75% of their last 51 home games as a favorite, 38-13 The Red Sox are 2-7 their last 9 games at Tropicana. The Rays are also 4-0 in their last 4 games against a left-handed starter, and that's a big part of this. As I mentioned, their numbers against lefties were atrocious in April and May, and even really into June. But the second half of the season, they called up Franco, they traded for Nelson Cruz, and Randy Arozarena really started hitting again, and he's mostly hit against left-handed pitching. So I do think they have the bats in the top of their order to actually produce against a left-handed pitcher, even though the numbers for the season are a little underwhelming overall.
Nick, favorite bet?
I'm not going to be as cute as these guys are. I'm going to go with Astros money line. I know they're the favorite in this one. I would like to go with them run line, but you look at what the White Sox bullpen did in the last month. I can't go and say it's going to be that wide a disparity. And then when you look at the Astros run line too, the payout, I got to go. I'm sorry, with the White Sox run line, I got to go with the Astros here. Overall, of course, I like McCullers more. I've made the case for him already, as has Steve versus Lynn. And the Astros have been here before too, so I think they're going to take this first one.
Gary, hook me up with a player prop that catches your eye in the DK Sportsbook.
I'm going to go with Jose Altuve over 1.5 total bases at plus 120. So you get him as the leadoff hitter here, so probably going to get 5 plate appearances, and not a huge BVP guy. However, Altuve is someone who throughout his career has crushed four-seam fastballs. This season alone, 317 average with a 600 slugging percentage. Lance Lynn, more than maybe any other pitcher of the past half decade, relies on his four-seam fastball usage. So it makes a lot of sense that for his career across 34 at-bats, Altuve has an OPS above 1,000 against Lance Lynn. There's a lot of stuff that just lines up here. I think Altuve really likes to face Lynn because he loves seeing that fastball. So over 1.5 total bases at plus money.
Nick, player prop.
Eduardo Rodriguez to give up a home run tonight. I know Steve has said he can still go and throw well tonight and give up a home run, right? Just be one mistake in all this. And he's done that against the Rays 3 out of the 4 times this season that he's seen them, giving up at least one home run. And the Rays have a team ISO of 230 against left-handed pitching over the last month, and they're 6th in at-bats per home run versus left-handed pitching during that same span.
All right, Steven, bring us home here, dude.
Yeah, Yordan Alvarez going over 1.5 bases. You can also get that at plus money tonight. Really like that one there. I mean, this dude just absolutely hits for power against both sides of the plate. It doesn't even matter who he's playing against. So I think this is a great bet to make here. His numbers against righties specifically, 256 isolated power, 368 WOBA, 137 WRC plus. Also has 23 doubles, a triple, 20 home runs. That's a lot of extra bases. Give me that over 1.5 bases at plus 110.
We love the passion today. Thanks, fellas. Quick break here. Then we're going to take a look at some DFS options for Thursday Night Football. We'll be right back.
All right, guys, welcome back. We are going to go ahead and take off our DK Sportsbook goggles now because it is our time. It is time now to see how our panel is building a money-making showdown lineup for tonight's Rams-Seahawks game. Make sure you get in that Millie Maker. Right, Meow, just $15 to enter. But yeah, another three-man panel here to help us out.
Yeah, DraftKings contributors Matt Meiselman, Kenny Ducey, and RotoWire's AJ Scholes. My first question for you is, who do you like as your captain, Kenny?
Well, it's going to be an interesting captain. I like Van Jefferson here. He's got 12 targets in his last 2 games, and I want to spend a lot of money on this slate. I want to get Matt Stafford into my lineup. I want to get Cooper Kupp, the NFL's target leader, into my lineup. And I definitely want to attack the Seattle secondary, one of the worst secondaries in history. That's hyperbole. But when you look at last year, it's somehow gotten worse this year. And this whole defense has allowed over 444 yards a game. It's been very bad. And Van Jefferson, to his credit, for some reason, in these primetime games, he shows up. He's only had 2 years in the NFL. But in primetime, 15.56 yards per target. I like that, he's had 6 primetime games. So there's a good sample size to work from there. Van Jefferson seems to show up in these games. You can get him here in the flex at $4,800, but I really like him in the captain spot at $7.2K. For a Rams offense, this passing attack should be lethal, and then you can fit some bigger high-priced options in there.
All right, talk to me, AJ.
I'm not going to go that far down the board, but I am going to go maybe a little bit off the beaten path here with Darrell Henderson. I know a lot of the attention is going to be on the QBs, on the wide receivers here. But look, Seattle has given up the second most DraftKings fantasy points per game to running backs at 33.6 this season. Additionally, Henderson, for his part, 10 rushing attempts inside the red zone through the first 4 games, including 4 from inside the 5-yard line. Plus, you avoid spending up for Kupp, for Wilson's, for Stafford, so you save a little bit of money, not nearly as much as you will with Kenny's recommendation there, but he's a little bit cheaper at $2,600 without breaking the bank.
All right, Matt, who you rolling with as your captain?
So yeah, Kenny's going to be especially off the board there because I think the guy who might even be the most popular captain for this whole slate is going to be even cheaper than Van Jefferson, and that's Alex Collins if Chris Carson doesn't play. So we don't actually know that yet. That's going to be a bit of an interesting situation to see if Carson gets out on the field or not. Collins is going to be the value play that makes it easy to fit everyone in. And I actually agree with AJ, maybe for a bit different reasons because of this, because I do think most lineups are going to include Collins and will include a bunch of expensive players. And because of that, Henderson probably goes overlooked in the mid-range. So I do like the matchup for him. He's been getting a huge amount of the workload for the Rams. There was the injury concern a couple weeks ago, but I like him more as the pivot off who I think probably will be the 2 most popular players in this game, and that's Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp. So for me, Henderson is more of a way to leverage against that, try to hope that the Rams do most of their scoring on the ground, and then maybe play some Seahawks passing game guys too. So I think Henderson comes in as a more contrarian option than the Rams passing offense.
All right, well, who are you going to stack with your captain, AJ?
Well, I do want to try and get one of these 2 QBs in there tonight. So really, I'm going to take the slightly modest discount, like very minimal, to get Matthew Stafford here at 11-4. He's got more touchdowns, more yards than Russell Wilson. We've talked about Seattle's problems. They've given up about 2 more DraftKings fantasy points per game than the Rams. So it's a slightly better matchup, and you're saving a little bit of money to use Stafford over Wilson here.
All right, Matty.
So the pricing is kind of wild here. It's not that you really need to fade anyone, but Stafford or Wilson could put up 20-plus points and still not be in winning lineups because they just cost so much, and there are just a bunch of players in this game that can score a lot of fantasy points. I think the value here that makes the most sense to include, if you're not going with Cooper Kupp and you're maybe playing the running game, is just play Robert Woods. Like, he's priced at $7,600. He's right in the middle, and he's clearly underpriced. But I think just the way that lineups are constructed tonight, you don't see a ton of him, or at least not as much as you should, because Collins is there. Maybe even Travis Homer, who's now the backup running back, who costs almost nothing. I think you see these stars and scrubs lineups where there's a cheap player or 2 in most of them and then a bunch of expensive guys, and then maybe Robert Woods goes a little overlooked. So I don't know that I would necessarily say he's part of a stack or anything, but I think that he's just generally a guy who makes a lot of sense for his price, and I don't think he'll be as popular as the quarterbacks.
All right, Kenny.
Yeah, I think that Robert Woods makes a lot of sense. And the other thing that I really like about Robert Woods is that he always seems to have at least one rushing attempt per game. He's got 4 through 4 games. And, he does always have the potential to break one of them. But, Sean McVay did also say that they really want to get him involved in the game plan. So I think that Robert Woods is certainly a guy I'm looking at in my lineup. But I will be the person to talk about Matt Stafford along with AJ when you consider the fact that, again, the Seattle secondary 28th in passing yards allowed per game. The Los Angeles Rams have gone with the pass nearly 59% of all plays, which ranks in the top half of the NFL, and I can expect it to rise here. Again, when you consider the Seattle Seahawks have not stopped the run or the pass, but historically they have been able to at least stop the run last year, and not a ton has changed on that front line. So I think that the Rams would be wise to throw the ball, and I think that's probably going to open things up for Matt Stafford. I really just think that this offense is going to score a lot of points. And when you look at Stafford, he also did run 6 times last week, and he ran, so I think that there's potential here for potentially a rushing touchdown for Matt Stafford. I wouldn't count that out as well, considering he does do just whatever it takes to score the football we've seen in the past. So maybe not only Russell Wilson has the rushing upside here.
All right, top 4 wide receivers are all over 7,600, with Woods the lowest at 7,600, Kupp higher than both quarterbacks at 12,400 in the flex. So are you sticking with those top 4 wide receivers, or you willing to look at another receiver in this game, Matt?
So we already know Kenny's answer because he is going with Van Jefferson as his captain. I like the pick too. I don't want to play him at captain, but I do think you can go down to the number 5 receiver in this game. So yeah, the answer is I think there are a lot of guys you can play here. I don't think you have to play the expensive receivers. Personally, I would probably want to have one of Metcalf or Lockett. Definitely not trying to fit both, because the probability that both of them have great games is just generally low. Like usually one of them has a touchdown or 2, the other one doesn't. And it would take a really, really high scoring game for them both to be great. So I think you play one of those guys, one of Kupp and Woods, and then maybe find another receiver or a tight end that's further down the list. So I don't think you just have to be stuck on these top guys.
Kenny?
Yeah, look, you obviously know I love Van Jefferson and I love Robert Woods, but I actually would make a case here too for Freddie Swain at $4,600. He played 45% of the Seattle snaps last week. He's got 11 targets over his last 3 games and 2 touchdowns in there as well. And like I said with Robert Woods with the rushing attempts, he's got 3 rushing attempts this year. So he's fast. They want to get him involved in the game plan. And when you talk about a short week, Thursday Night Football, a divisional game, I think that there's going to be the potential here for some gadget plays, for the playbook being really reached deep into with 2 very good coaches. I think that Freddie Swain is a weapon that Seattle might want to use here. And again, I'm not afraid to attack this Rams secondary like maybe we were last year. They just haven't looked that same level of dominant, and they did lose some players. So I think that there maybe is something to be said for this Rams secondary being a little softer than it was last year. I do think Freddie Swain is an interesting option at $4,600. I think there's so many receivers you can go with here.
AJ, who you rolling with?
Yeah, I love that pick by Kenny. And honestly, I think you have the flexibility using a Swain, or I am going to use Van Jefferson, who Kenny highlighted at the top of the show. But if you use those guys, you can still put in like a Metcalf and a Woods. So I've actually got Metcalf, Woods, and Jefferson in my lineup. Look, Jefferson, as Kenny said, 6 targets in each of the last 2 games, 10 receptions, 132 yards, 1 touchdown. And he, 4,800 is just a steal for Jefferson, if you're not quite as adventurous as Kenny to toss him in that captain spot.
AJ, hook me up with your favorite value play before we wrap this segment up.
Well, look, Matt kind of already touched on this. It might be the chalkiest play on the board tonight, but Alex Collins at 3,200. I mean, it's impossible to get away from this guy, I think, tonight. Even if Chris Carson plays. Look, last week he actually only had 2 fewer touchers than Carson. So I think he could be in the mix here either way, but especially if Carson plays, there'll probably be a little bit more share for Collins. They'll probably manage workload. But obviously, if Carson's out, Alex Collins almost has to be in your lineup at this point, given that price tag.
All right, Kenny, how about you, dude?
Yeah, it's pretty weird. I mean, obviously Collins is going to be the answer here, so I'm really reaching deep. But I think maybe Colby Parkinson at $200, if you even know that guy's an NFL football player. He did play on 68% of snaps last week. Apparently, Pete Carroll likes him. It shows, right, with the amount of snaps that he's playing. But he did say that he looked really good in training camp. And there's no Gerald Everett here. He's on the COVID-19 list, so Parkinson should, see 70% of the snaps. And, look, while he's not going to be peppered with targets on a showdown slate like this, a second tight end, you never know. He could get a red zone target, get a touchdown here and be a vulture just based on how much he's on the field. So that's maybe a dart that I'm throwing in one of my lineups if I'm making a lot in a GPP at $200.
All right, Maddie, bring us home.
So if Chris Carson at 6,600 plays, I think he's underpriced and his ownership is just going to be so low that, from that sense, he's a value play too. We saw on Monday night, Josh Jacobs came in with roughly the same ownership percentage as both Kenyon Drake and Peyton Barber, even though he's the starting running back, because I think a lot of the time people worry that someone who's dealing with an injury won't play the whole game. Ultimately, though, I don't think Carson ends up playing, and then Collins becomes the obvious value play. So I'm just looking to Travis Homer as the leverage point off of Collins. Seattle could get down early. Homer has been the guy they use in passing situations. So I think if you're playing for that game script where you want to get away from Collins, the easiest way to do that is to just make a lineup where you have a bunch of Rams. You hope the Rams do really well early. You play Homer, who only costs $1,000. So he doesn't necessarily need anything to go that right for him to do well. He'll be out there for some snaps, but the scenario where he does really well is one where the Rams have the lead. So either way, I think Homer, $1,000 price tag, he's a value play too.
All right, thanks for the help, dudes. We're going to talk college football and the latest Heisman odds right after this final break. Final block of the show, and we're spending it with our own Julian Edlow, who's here to lay down his favorite plays for Week 6 on the college football slate.
Okay, the Red River rivalry. Oklahoma and Texas, you got the Sooners, 3.5-point favorites here, Jules, and the over-under, 63.5. Where are you looking in this one, dude?
Yeah, Oklahoma is kind of a disappointing 5-0, if that's possible. They haven't been doing very well against the number. They almost covered on the road at Kansas State last week, but K-State got a late kickoff return to kind of backdoor that one. This one's tight. Texas, outside of that terrible game on the road at Arkansas, has been very good. They're a 3.5-point home dog in this one. I kind of lean to taking the 3.5 points with the home team here. I think they're going to come out looking pretty good. Oklahoma keeps tripping up. They're kind of due for one slip up at some point, but it's a very close game. It should be a very entertaining game. And Oklahoma really needs this one if they're going to kind of assert the dominance that we expected them to have in the Big 12 this season.
All right, Georgia going to Auburn. The number 2 ranked Bulldogs are big favorites, just a game total of 46.5. So what are you looking at in this one?
Yeah, so this game I do have some more convincing takes on, and it's just that Georgia is absolutely dominant. All that money coming in on Arkansas last week, plus 18.5, betting it all the way down to 16.5 or whatever it wound up being. And Georgia absolutely steamrolls them, shuts them out, put a 0 on the board. I like Georgia every which way in this one. I got them minus 14 at open at the beginning of the week. Obviously, you got past that kind of key number of 2 touchdowns now. I don't mind laying the 15.5, but that's probably my third favorite bet in this game. Love the first half, minus 7.5 for the Georgia Bulldogs. I don't care that they're on the road. They've just gotten it done every single time. I think they're going to come out hot in this game and keep steamrolling teams. Last week, Arkansas's team total was 15.5 points. I said to take the under on that. They wound up with a goose egg. I don't know if Auburn gets shut out at home here, but 7-10 points. We're looking at the same team total this week. I like Auburn under 15.5 team total. I love Georgia minus 7.5 first half.
All right, let's talk the premier matchup of the week here. It comes courtesy of the Big Ten top 5 matchup. You got Iowa, you got Penn State. So the Nittany Lions are the underdogs here by 1.5 with a 40.5 game total. Are we going to see like the anticipated rock fight between these two defenses, Jules?
We've seen Iowa and Penn State play a game before with the final score being 6-4. It was a baseball game. That's like impossible. I don't know if it's going to be quite that ugly, but I think it is going to be ugly. These two defenses are very good. I lean to the under in this game. This is one of those situations where, like, go find the lowest total on the board and bet the under. This is that type of game. I don't think we're going to see many points. The question is who wins the game. This opened with Penn State at +3. I was interested in some Penn State +3. I waited. It's gone. Now, if this gets near a pick'em with Iowa at home, like two very similar teams, both of these teams need this game to, make the college football playoff. One of them can make it if they win this game. The other's probably out. So this is essentially a playoff game in my mind. If this gets to a pick, I would go with the home team. But how close this game is, like I told you, I liked Penn State +3. So it's gonna be a grinder. Let's see where the number goes, and I might have something in my college football best bets article on it.
All right, Notre Dame heading to Blacksburg, basically a pick 'em right now with the Hokies, the 1-point favorite. Can Notre Dame bounce back this week?
No, Notre Dame can't bounce back. Notre Dame has been overachieving so far this season. It finally caught up to them at home against Cincinnati, a team that really needed that game and was playing for its college football playoff lives and kept it alive. Now you go on the road, you face a Virginia Tech team that is very difficult at home. If you watch that opener against UNC, great atmosphere at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech comes off a bye, so they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, while Notre Dame was focused on, you got that high of the win in Chicago against Wisconsin. Then you come home, lose to Cincinnati. Now they kind of know their season is over. There's no way to make the college football playoff. Now you have to go on the road for a good defensive team that's been preparing for you for 2 weeks. I like the Hokies at home to get this game.
All right, Alabama visiting Texas A&M here. Bama, the 18-point road favorite, 50.5 game total. Who do you like in this one, Jules?
I'm a huge Bama guy. We know this. And I will be backing them as my largest bet of the week on the first half spread, -10.5. Alabama gets the first half done every time. They can take their foot off the gas late, and they have. They covered the first half against Florida at a big -9 in the first half. They easily covered that, and it wound up being a 2-point game. I don't think this one's going to get close late. I think Alabama covers the 18. Texas A&M is not very good. They've been a huge disappointment. They're now 0-2 in SEC play. They're toast. The only thing they have going for them in this game is that they're at home, but I don't care. Alabama's been playing all these afternoon games. They now finally get the primetime 8 p.m. game here. Everybody's going to be watching. I think they come out and absolutely throttle Texas A&M. The first half number, a little gross. It's at 10.5. You're supposed to say, I want to pass. I want 9.5 or 10. Doesn't matter. Lay the 10.5 in the first half with Alabama. They're going to come out and go up big in this game.
All right, QB1 for the #1 team in the nation. Bryce Young is the Heisman favorite right now, +120, followed closely by Ole Miss QB. He's +200. Is it between those two guys, or are you looking at someone right behind them on the odds board? You got Desmond Ridder, CJ Stroud. What do you think?
It's probably between those two guys. Matt Corral cost himself a little bit with the loss head-to-head to Alabama last week, but if somehow that winds up being their only loss, he becomes more attractive. Bryce Young deserves to be the favorite at +120. You're still getting some plus money there. Alabama, this was supposed to be their big test on Saturday night at Texas A&M. This was supposed to be, if Alabama loses the game, this is it. Now Texas A&M looks awful. So Alabama has a good chance to go 12-0, which makes it tough for Bryce Young to lose. But Desmond Ridder at +1,200. If Cincinnati runs the table and gets into the college football playoff and Alabama drops a game at 12-1, that has some juice to it. Texas losing the game to Arkansas really hurts. Bijan Robinson is the best running back in the country by a wide margin. He's 25-1 at +2,500. He's got something there. And then I promised our pick guy, Samir, that I had to mention Kenny Pickett, the Panthers quarterback, at plus 4,000. He's putting up ridiculous numbers. Pitt's lost a game, so it's hard to imagine that it goes there. But if they run the table the rest of the way, which would include a win over Clemson if they do so, and can get to something like 11-1, and he keeps putting up these numbers, or even maybe wind up 10-2, he has a chance. He just needs the rest of the guys. Like Alabama has to lose a game, Cincinnati has to lose a game. A lot has to happen, even if Kenny Pickett keeps playing at this level, for him to cash a 40-1 ticket like that.
All right, so those are plus 4,000 odds, and I know it's still pretty early in the season here, Jules, but who has longer odds right now that you think has a good chance to have like a huge second half of the year and maybe be in the mix come December for the Heisman Trophy?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of messed that up and gave you long odds there.
It's okay. Is there anyone else with longer odds, or go ahead?
So Kenny Pickett's probably my answer there, but so Sam Howell was like a top 4 or 5 candidate here at the top of the season. He's a guy that's, at one point was projected to be a top 3, top 5 pick in the NFL draft, still could be. And he's now plus 6,000. He doesn't have the weapons there. It's very unlikely. But just in terms of pure value, getting a guy that was heavily favored here that at least has the talent and has the NFL talent, plus 6,000 on Sam Howell. If UNC can turn this season around, and they should hang a pretty good number as massive favorites against FSU this weekend, plus 6,000 on Sam Howell looks pretty good as well.
All right.
That's
Thank
it,
you,
man.
Julian. That is a show, everybody. The fun continues, though. Madden Sims coming your way, starting at noon. Then at 5 p.m., make sure you tune into The Slate with Adam Kaufman and Reed T. Fowler. They're going to get you ready for Thursday Night Football. And we'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m.
That sounds good to me, dude.
All right.